The final day before departure arrived. Commander Thelvo sat alone in his ready room, preparing the official report. This would become part of the permanent galactic database. Every species would have access to it. Every military commander would read it. Every expedition planner would study it. He needed to get this right. The door chimed. "Enter," he called. Krenda stepped inside carrying a datapad. "Sir, I have the final threat assessment ready for your review." "Sit." Thelvos gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Before we finalize this, I want your honest opinion. Not as my science officer, as someone who has spent 2 weeks studying these humans. Do you think we're overreacting?" Krenda was quiet for a moment. His skin shifted through several colors, orange, gray, finally settling on dark blue. "Deep thought. Sir, 3 weeks ago I would have said yes. I would have recommended we proceed with the invasion. But now," he shook his head, "I've watched humans do impossible things and call it normal. I've seen their children play games that would hospitalize our soldiers. I've observed their elderly recover from injuries that would kill most species. And I've studied their history. Their history troubles you?" "Yes, sir. Humans have been through multiple extinction-level events on their own planet. Massive climate changes, volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for years, asteroid impacts, and they survived all of it with primitive technology. Now imagine them with access to our ships, our weapons, our knowledge." Thelvos nodded slowly. "You think they would be unstoppable?" "I think they would be terrifying, sir. Right now they're limited by their own planet. But if they ever leave Earth in force, if they ever decide to expand into the galaxy?" Krenda's skin went white. "We would have created the most dangerous competitor imaginable." "Then we're agreed. This report needs to be absolutely clear. No one can be allowed to make the mistake we almost made." Thelvos began typing. The report took shape over several hours. Every observation, every data point, every conclusion. When it was done, he read it aloud to Krenda. "Official report. Planet Earth threat assessment and classification. Commander Thelvos of the Endless Conquest 4th Fleet, Valtrine Empire. Stardate 44713." He continued reading. "Subject Planet Earth located in Outer Spiral Arm, Sector 471. Initial survey suggested primitive civilization suitable for standard conquest protocol. Upon detailed observation, this assessment was found to be catastrophically incorrect." Krenda listened as Thelvos detailed everything. The Deathworld classification, the human physiology, the encounter with Day One, the observations of civilians, the military history, the cultural psychology. Conclusion, Thelvos read. "Humanity represents an extreme threat level that exceeds all existing classification systems. Recommend immediate creation of new classification. Level Omega. Do not engage under any circumstances." He looked up at Krenda. "Is that too strong?" "No, sir. If anything, it's not strong enough." Thelvos added another paragraph. "Additional note for military commanders. Do not be deceived by human technology levels. Their lack of advanced weapons is irrelevant. We observed a single unarmed civilian defend himself against a 200-kilogram apex predator, using only primitive tools. He sustained injuries that would be fatal to most species and continued functioning. This is not exceptional among humans. This is normal." He kept writing. "Human warfare is total. They do not understand limited engagement. They do not accept surrender when losing. Their cultural history shows they will fight to the last individual if necessary. They view death in combat as honorable rather than tragic. They train their children to endure pain and danger. Their entertainment media glorifies violence and survival against impossible odds." Krenda added a suggestion. "Sir, you should include the persistence hunting information." "That's what troubles me most." Thelvos nodded and wrote more. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They are biologically and psychologically adapted to pursue prey across vast distances over extended time periods. They do not tire easily. They do not give up. If attacked, they will hunt their attackers across the stars if necessary. There is no evidence in their history of humans abandoning a grudge or forgetting an enemy." He paused. This next part was important. Recommendations for any species encountering humanity. First, avoid all military conflict. Humans are far more dangerous than their technology suggests. Second, if contact is unavoidable, approach diplomatically. Humans respond well to respect and poorly to threats. Third, if humanity becomes hostile, Retreat immediately and maintain maximum distance. Do not attempt to negotiate from a position of strength. They will view it as a challenge. Should we mention their potential? Krenda asked. Yes. That might be the most important part. Telvos added a final section. Future threat assessment. Humanity currently lacks faster-than-light travel, energy shielding, and advanced weapons systems. However, their technological progress is rapid. Their scientific method is sound. Their problem-solving abilities are exceptional. It is probable that humans will develop galactic standard technology within the next 100 years. When that happens, he continued writing, humanity will become the dominant military force in this region of space. No existing species is adapted to high-gravity combat. No existing species has the pain tolerance and endurance of humans. No existing species has the psychological drive to never surrender. A human ship crew would outperform any other species in every category that matters for warfare. He finished the report. Final recommendation: monitor Earth from a safe distance. Establish diplomatic protocols for peaceful contact. Hope they come as friends. Prepare for the possibility they come as conquerors. And if they do come as conquerors, the galaxy will learn what it means to face a species that evolved by fighting their own planet and winning. Krenda read through the report on the datapad. It's good, sir. Clear, direct. Maybe it will save lives. Maybe. Telvos wasn't sure. He knew how military commanders thought. Some would read this report and see a challenge. Some would think they could succeed where he had failed. Some would ignore it entirely until it was too late. But he had done his duty. The warning was there. What others did with it was beyond his control. Sir, Krenda said, do you think humans will ever find out we were here? That we observed them? I doubt it. Our drones are undetectable by their technology. And even if they somehow found evidence, they would probably dismiss it as instrument error or weather phenomena. They don't know aliens exist. They don't know they're being watched. What do you think they would do if they knew? Telvos thought about it. Knowing humans, they would probably accelerate their space program, build weapons, prepare for war, and then they would come looking for us to find out why we were watching them. That's what I thought too, Krenda said quietly. There was a long silence, both of them thinking about the same thing. Somewhere down on that blue planet, Daewon was probably back at work. Bora was saving lives. Tai Yang was building structures. Haewon was complaining about not being allowed to do more. Sung Ho was planning his next marathon. None of them knew they were being observed. None of them knew they had prevented an interstellar war simply by being themselves. None of them knew they were the monsters that made aliens afraid. Upload the report to the central database, Telvos ordered. Highest security classification. Make sure every fleet commander receives a copy. And add one more thing, sir. Add a personal note from me. Tell them I've conquered 17 worlds without losing a single ship. Tell them I've faced every kind of enemy the galaxy has produced. And tell them I'm more frightened of humanity than I've ever been of anything in 30 years of military service. That's unusual, sir. Personal notes aren't standard in official reports. I don't care. Maybe it will make someone think twice before doing something stupid. Krenda nodded and began uploading the data. The transmission would take hours to reach the nearest relay station. From there, it would spread across the Empire and beyond. Other species would read it. Other commanders would study it. The warning would be official. Telvos stood and walked to the window. Earth was disappearing as the fleet moved away at maximum speed. Soon it would be just another star among billions. But he would never forget it. Never forget watching Daewon fight that bear. Never forget the realization that humanity was something the galaxy had never encountered before. Sir, the fleet is ready for jump to hyperspace, the bridge officer reported over the comm. Proceed, Telvos ordered. Set course for home. Maximum speed, and log this in the official record. The Fourth Fleet withdraws from Earth sector without engagement. Reason: overwhelming threat level. Classification: level Omega. He took one last look at the distant planet. And may whatever gods exist have mercy on us if humanity ever decides to leave that world and explore the stars. The ship lurched slightly as it entered hyperspace. Earth disappeared. The mission was over. The invasion that never happened was complete. But Telvos knew this wasn't really the end. It was just a postponement. Someday humans would develop faster than light travel. Someday they would spread across the galaxy. Someday every species would meet them. And when that day came, the galaxy would change forever. For better or worse, nothing would ever be the same once humanity joined the galactic community. The bridge of the endless conquest was completely silent. Every officer stared at the main display. The recording played again, and again. No one spoke. Commander Thelvos had watched it 17 times now. Each time he hoped to see something different. Each time he saw the same impossible thing. A human fighting an apex predator with primitive tools. A human taking injuries that should have been fatal. A human winning through sheer stubbornness and refusing to die. "That's not possible," whispered Krenda. His skin had turned pure white terror. "No one survives that. No one." "Play it again," Thelvos ordered. His voice sounded strange even to himself. The recording started over. They watched Daewon face the bear. Watched him stand his ground when any sane creature would run. Watched him take a blow that would have killed a Valtrine instantly and keep fighting. Watched him jam his arm into the bear's mouth to protect his throat. Taking horrific damage but staying conscious. Staying focused. Staying alive. "Analyze his injuries," Thelvos said. Krenda worked the console with shaking hands. Deep lacerations to the shoulder. Muscle damage. Broken ribs from impact with the rocks. Severe puncture wounds to the forearm. Damage to the leg muscles. Blood loss estimated at 15% of total volume. And he remained conscious? "Yes, sir." He treated his own wounds. He called for assistance using calm, professional language. Then he secured the area and waited for medical support. How long until support arrived? 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Bleeding from multiple wounds. In shock on a freezing mountain. And Daewon had simply waited. Thelvos felt something cold settle in his chest. "Pull up the medical records," he ordered. "I want to know how long he was hospitalized." Krenda accessed the human data networks. Their security was laughably basic. "Sir, according to the hospital records, Daewon was treated for 5 days. They performed surgery to repair the damage. He was released on day 5 and returned to light duty after 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Thelvos repeated. "He'll be back at work in 3 weeks?" "Yes, sir." The commander looked around the bridge. His officers were all thinking the same thing. Their species would need months to recover from injuries like that. Some would never fully heal. But this human would be back on the job in less than a month. Back in the wilderness. Back facing dangers that most civilized species couldn't even imagine. "I want a full council meeting," Thelvos said. "All senior officers, 1 hour. This changes everything." The council chamber filled quickly. Officers arrived with expressions of confusion and concern. They had all seen the recording. They had all reached the same conclusion. This was not a normal conquest scenario. Thelvos stood at the head of the table. The recording played on the wall behind him. 3 days ago, we believed Earth would be an easy target. We were wrong. Observe." They watched in silence as Daewon fought the bear. When it ended, Thelvos spoke again. "This is not a soldier. This is not a warrior. This is a park ranger, a civilian whose job is to maintain wilderness areas and assist tourists. He was not trained for combat. He was not wearing armor. He had no proper weapons. And yet he survived an encounter that would kill any of us." "It could be an exceptional individual," said one officer. "Every species has outliers." "I thought the same," Thelvos said. "Krenda, show them what else we've found." The screen changed. New footage appeared. Humans performing various tasks. A medical worker named Bora who worked for 18 hours straight saving lives. Making critical decisions without rest. A construction worker named Tae Yang who lifted heavy materials in extreme heat for an entire day. An elderly female named Hae-Wan who underwent major surgery and was walking the next day, complaining about being bored. "We've been observing humans across the planet," Krenda explained. "These are not outliers. This is normal. Their entire species is like this." "What about their children?" asked another officer. "Surely the young are vulnerable." New footage appeared. Human children playing. They ran and fell and got up laughing. They tackled each other in games. They climbed dangerous structures for fun. Their parents watched and encouraged this behavior. They trained their young to endure pain, Krenda said. They consider it necessary for proper development. The chamber was silent. Every officer was recalculating everything they knew about warfare and conquest. "There's more," Thelvos said. "Show them the military history." The screen filled with data. Human wars, battles, conflicts. The numbers were staggering. Millions of casualties in single conflicts. Wars that lasted years. Entire continents consumed by fighting. And through it all, humans kept fighting. They never surrendered. They defended hopeless positions. They attacked when defeat was certain. They created weapons specifically designed to cause maximum damage to their own species. This is what they do to each other, Thelvos said quietly. Imagine what they would do to us. One officer stood up. Commander, surely we have superior technology. Our shields would protect against their primitive weapons. Our energy weapons would destroy their defenses, would they? Thelvos asked. Our shields are designed to stop weapons traveling at certain speeds. Human bullets move faster than many of our own projectiles. Their explosive devices create pressures that exceed our shield tolerances, and that's assuming we can even deploy shields in Earth's gravity. Most of our equipment wasn't designed to operate under such crushing conditions. He pulled up more data. Our soldiers are adapted to low-gravity worlds. On Earth, they would barely be able to move. The atmosphere is toxic to most of our species. We would need full environmental suits. The humans would be fighting on their home ground, in conditions they find comfortable, with a lifetime of adaptation to high gravity making them stronger than any of our troops. What about orbital bombardment? Someone asked, and then what? Thelvos demanded. Destroy the planet? That defeats the purpose of conquest. Land troops in a bombed area. The humans have extensive underground facilities. Their survival infrastructure is built to withstand their own weapons, which are more powerful than you think. And even if we killed 90% of them, the survivors would keep fighting. Their history proves this. The room fell silent again. The weight of realization settled on everyone. There's something else, Krenda said. Something we noticed in their cultural records. Humans have a concept they call persistence hunting. Their ancient ancestors would track prey animals for days, not fast enough to catch them quickly, just stubborn enough to never stop following. The prey would run until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then the humans would kill it. He looked around the chamber. We're not persistence hunters. Our wars are quick. We offer terms. We accept surrender. But humans, they don't think like that. If we attack them, they won't stop. Ever. They'll hunt us across the stars if they have to. And we've seen what happens when they hunt something. Thelvos thought of Day One, bleeding and broken but still standing. Still fighting. Still refusing to die. He thought of that multiplied by 8 billion. 8 billion humans, each one a potential warrior. Each one adapted to survive on a world that would kill most species. We cannot conquer Earth, he said finally. We would lose. Even if we won initially, we would lose eventually. They would never stop fighting. Never stop hunting us. And one day they would come to our worlds with the same determination they showed fighting their own planet's predators. What do we do then? Asked an officer. Thelvos looked at the blue planet on the display. So beautiful from space. So deadly up close, we leave, he said. We classify Earth as unconquerable. We warn the rest of the Empire. And we hope that when humans finally leave their world and travel to the stars, they come as friends and not as conquerors. And if they come as conquerors, Thelvos thought of Daiwan facing the bear. Thought of what 8 billion humans could do if they decided to expand their territory. Then the galaxy will learn what a Deathworld species can do, he said quietly. And I pray I'm not alive to see it. Commander Thelvos couldn't sleep. He stood in his quarters staring at the wall display. Earth rotated slowly in the projection. Clouds swirled across the surface. Oceans reflected sunlight. It looked peaceful. But he knew better now. 2 days had passed since the council meeting. 2 days since watching a human fight a bear and win. The decision to withdraw had been made. The fleet was preparing to leave. But something bothered him. A nagging doubt. What if Day One really was exceptional? What if they were making a mistake based on one unusual encounter? What if Earth was actually vulnerable and they were running from nothing? Thelvos knew these thoughts were dangerous. They were the same thoughts that had led to military disasters throughout history. Underestimating the enemy. Assuming you knew better. Ignoring the evidence in front of you. But he had to be sure. He pressed the communication button. Krenda, report to my quarters. The science officer arrived within minutes. His skin was a tired gray color. Sir? I need you to do something, Thelvos said. I need you to observe more humans. Not just one. Not just a few. I need a comprehensive study. Can our drones remain undetected for another week? Yes, sir. But I thought we were withdrawing? We are. But I need to be certain we're making the right decision. Choose 20 humans at random. Different ages, different occupations, different regions. I want to know if Day One was typical or exceptional. Krenda's skin shifted to orange. Uncertainty. Sir, what if we find out he was exceptional? Will we reverse the withdrawal? Telvos looked at the image of Earth. Then we'll have better intelligence for future operations. But between you and me, I don't think he was exceptional. I think we're about to confirm our worst fears. Over the next week, Krenda deployed drones across the planet. The data streamed back to the ship constantly. Telvos watched as much as he could. Each recording added to his growing sense that humanity was far more dangerous than any species had the right to be. The first subject was Bo-Ra, 28 years old, emergency room doctor in a city called Seoul. The drones followed her through a typical work shift. Telvos watched as Bo-Ra treated a man who had been in a vehicle accident. The injuries were severe: broken bones, internal bleeding. The patient was screaming in pain. Bo-Ra remained calm. She made quick decisions about treatment. She spoke to the patient in a soothing voice while inserting tubes and administering medications. "What's her heart rate?" Telvos asked. "Elevated but controlled," Krenda replied. "She's experiencing stress but managing it effectively." The shift continued. Bo-Ra treated a child with a severe infection, an elderly man having a cardiac emergency, a woman who had fallen from a height. Patient after patient, crisis after crisis, and through it all, Bo-Ra never stopped. Never panicked. Never seemed overwhelmed. "How long has she been working?" Telvos asked. Krenda checked the timestamps. 16 hours, sir. When will she rest?" According to the hospital schedule, she has another 2 hours before her shift ends. 18 hours. Telvos felt his own exhaustion just thinking about it. His species needed rest every 8 hours, or their cognitive functions declined sharply. But Bo-Ra kept working, kept saving lives, kept making critical decisions that required perfect clarity of thought. At the end of her shift, Bo-Ra went to a small room and collapsed on a narrow bed. She was asleep in seconds. 4 hours later, she woke up and started another shift. "That's not sustainable," Telvos said. "She's been doing this for 3 years, sir. It's considered normal for her profession." The next subject was Tai Yang, 32 years old, construction worker. The drones found him at a building site in a city called Busan. The temperature was 38 degrees. The humidity was oppressive even by Valtrine standards. Tai Yang wore minimal protective equipment: a hard helmet, heavy boots, work gloves. That was all. He lifted steel beams that weighed 70 kilograms. He carried them across scaffolding. He welded metal in the direct sun. His skin glistened with sweat, but he never stopped working. "His core temperature is dangerously high," Krenda said. "He should be experiencing heat stroke." "But he's not?" "No, sir. His body is regulating the heat somehow. He's drinking water regularly and continuing to work." The workday lasted 10 hours. Tai Yang climbed, lifted, carried, and built without pause except for a brief lunch. At the end, he went home to a small apartment, ate dinner, and went out again to meet friends. They went to something called a gym where they deliberately lifted heavy objects for fun. "Why?" Telvos asked. "Why would they do more physical labor after working all day?" "Cultural research suggests they do this to become stronger," Krenda said. "They intentionally stress their bodies to force adaptation." The third subject made Telvos question everything he thought he knew about biology. Her name was Haewon, 62 years old, grandmother, retired teacher. She had recently undergone major surgery to repair a damaged joint in her leg. The drones observed her in the hospital. She woke up the day after surgery and immediately tried to walk. The nurses had to convince her to rest. 2 days later, she was walking the hospital corridors with a support frame. 3 days later, she demanded to be released. "I'm bored," she told the doctors. "I want to go home." They released her with instructions to rest and recover slowly. The drones followed her home. She spent 1 day resting. Then she started doing light housework. Then she went for walks around her neighborhood. A week after major surgery, she was cooking meals for her family and complaining that she couldn't do more. "Her pain tolerance is remarkable," Krenda said. "She's experiencing significant discomfort but ignoring it." "Or she's adapted to it," Telvos said. "Living on that planet probably involves constant minor injuries. They learn to work through pain from childhood." That theory was confirmed by the next subject, Sung Ho, 17 years old, high school student. The drones observed him participating in something called a marathon, 42 kilometers of continuous running. Telvos watched in fascination as Sung Ho and thousands of other humans ran through city streets. They pushed their bodies to the limit. Some collapsed. Some vomited from exertion. But most finished. And when they finished, they didn't rest. They immediately started planning for the next marathon. They do this for fun, Thelvo said. It wasn't a question. He had read the cultural data. They voluntarily exhaust themselves to the point of physical breakdown because they find it satisfying. Yes, sir. The observations continued. A firefighter named Ji-Wan who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. A teacher named Minseo, who worked 12 hours a day educating children while dealing with her own health problems. An elderly man named Chang-Su, who had survived a war and spoke casually about experiences that would traumatize most species for life. Every human was different. Different ages, different occupations, different circumstances, but they all shared the same fundamental traits. Endurance, pain tolerance, the ability to function under stress that would break most sentient beings, the willingness to push themselves beyond reasonable limits. On the 7th day, Krenda compiled the final report. He delivered it to Thelvos in person. His skin was pale blue. Resignation. The analysis is complete, sir. And Day 1 was not exceptional. If anything, he was slightly more cautious than average. The typical human demonstrates equivalent or superior endurance, pain tolerance, and threat response. The entire species is adapted to survive on a Class 12 death world, and they consider it normal. Thelvos had expected this answer, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a physical blow. There's more, sir. Krenda pulled up additional data. I analyzed their entertainment media, their fiction, the stories they tell themselves, and they fantasize about conflict, sir. Their most popular stories involve overcoming impossible odds, fighting against superior enemies, refusing to surrender even when defeat is certain. They admire characters who endure suffering and keep fighting. Krenda showed examples. Movies about humans fighting aliens and winning. Books about surviving disasters. Games where players controlled human soldiers against overwhelming forces. The pattern was clear. Humanity didn't just accept violence. They celebrated it. They're warriors, Thelvos said quietly. All of them. Even the civilians. Even the children. They're all warriors who haven't been activated yet. Yes, sir. That's my conclusion as well. Thelvos stood and walked to the window. Earth hung in the black. So small, so fragile looking. So deadly. Begin the withdrawal, he ordered. Full speed. Maximum distance. And Krenda. Yes, sir? Classify all of this data at the highest level. Restricted access. I don't want anyone getting ideas about returning here when I'm gone. Understood, sir. And add one more note to the file. Sir, Thelvos kept his eyes on the planet. Note that humans currently have no faster-than-light travel. No energy shields. No advanced weapons by galactic standards. And despite all that, they are unconquerable. Add a warning. If they ever develop proper space travel, if they ever gain access to galactic technology, they will become the most dangerous species in known space. He paused. No, change that. They already are the most dangerous species. They just don't know it yet. Day 1 had been working as a park ranger for 12 years. He knew these mountains better than he knew his own apartment in the city. Every trail, every dangerous spot, every place where animals like to gather. Today was supposed to be a routine patrol. Check the wildlife cameras. Look for signs of illegal hunting. Make sure the trails were safe for the tourists who would arrive next month. The morning had been quiet. He had seen deer tracks near the lower stream. Some wild boar had been rooting around near the old ranger station. Normal activity. Nothing concerning. The weather was cold, but not dangerously so. Day 1 had been through worse many times. He stopped near a stream to fill his water bottle. The water here was clean enough to drink. Cold mountain runoff. It tasted better than anything from the city. He took a long drink and looked around. This was why he loved his job. The silence, the peace, the feeling of being part of something bigger than the crowded cities and busy roads. Behind him, a branch cracked. Day 1 turned slowly. Movement caught his eye. Something large and dark between the trees. He froze, his mind running through possibilities. Boar, no, too big. Deer, wrong shape. Then he saw it clearly and his heart rate picked up. Bear, a black bear, probably male, around 200 kilograms. That wasn't the problem. Black bears usually avoided humans. They were shy creatures. But this one was moving wrong, limping. Day 1 could see blood on its shoulder. An injury. That made everything different. An injured bear was unpredictable. It would be in pain. It would be frightened. It might see anything as a threat. Day One assessed his options quickly. The nearest town was 20 kilometers away. His radio could call for help, but no one would arrive in time. The bear was between him and the main trail. He could try to move away slowly. Give the bear space. Let it calm down. That was the textbook response. But the bear was already looking at him, already moving toward him, already making the decision. Day One reached down and grabbed a fallen branch. It was thick, about as long as his arm. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. He held it in both hands and made himself as large as possible. Raised his arms. Stood tall. Hey, he shouted. His voice echoed off the mountains. Get back, go on. The bear stopped, studied him. Day One could see the intelligence in its eyes. The animal was making calculations. Was this small creature worth fighting? Was it dangerous? Should it retreat? Then the bear's pain made the decision. It roared and charged. Everything happened very fast. The bear covered the ground between them in seconds. 200 kilograms of muscle and claws and teeth. Day One didn't run. He knew he couldn't outrun a bear. They were faster than humans over short distances. Running would trigger the bear's chase instinct. Make things worse, instead he held his ground, waited, watched the bear close the distance. At the last possible moment, he stepped to the side. The bear's momentum carried it past him. Its claws caught his shoulder and ripped through his jacket. Pain exploded down his arm. Day One staggered but stayed on his feet. Blood soaked through his clothes. He ignored it. The bear had turned around and was coming again. This time Day One was ready. He swung the branch with both hands, catching the bear across its injured shoulder. The animal roared in pain and backed up. That's right, Day One shouted. Not worth it. I'm not easy food. But the bear was angry now. It reared up on its hind legs, standing nearly 2.5 meters tall. Its mouth opened wide, showing teeth that could crush bone. It dropped down and charged again. Day One moved backward, keeping the branch between them. His shoulder was screaming in pain, but he forced himself to focus. The bear swiped at the branch, snapping it in half. Day One threw the broken piece at the bear's face and reached for his belt knife. It was a simple blade, 10 centimeters long, used for cutting rope and preparing firewood. Against a bear it was almost useless, but it was what he had. The bear lunged forward. Day One dropped low and rolled to the side. His shoulder hit the ground and he nearly blacked out from the pain. The bear's claws missed him by centimeters. He came up near a cluster of rocks and grabbed one. It fit perfectly in his hand. When the bear charged again, Day One threw the rock with all his strength. It hit the bear's nose, the most sensitive spot. The animal yelped and shook its head. Blood dripped from its snout. Day One backed up toward the rocky slope. The ground there was uneven, full of loose stones and steep angles, hard for the bear to navigate. He needed every advantage he could get. His vision was starting to blur. Blood loss. He had maybe 5 more minutes before his body gave out. The bear followed him into the rocks. It was slower now, limping badly on its injured leg, but still dangerous, still capable of killing him with one good hit. Day One kept his knife ready and watched for openings. The bear reared up again. Day One saw his chance. He darted forward and slashed at the bear's exposed underside. The knife cut shallow, but it was enough. The bear dropped down and roared. It swiped at Day One, catching his leg. He fell hard against a boulder. His vision went white. When it cleared, the bear was right in front of him, mouth open, about to bite. Day One did the only thing he could think of. He jammed his forearm into the bear's mouth. The teeth clamped down. The pain was incredible, but it kept the bear from biting his throat or face. With his other hand, Day One stabbed blindly. The knife found flesh. He pulled it out and stabbed again, and again. The bear released his arm and backed away, roaring in pain and confusion. They stared at each other, both bleeding, both exhausted, both wondering if the fight was worth continuing. Day One could barely stand. His shoulder was destroyed. His arm was torn open. His leg was injured, but he was still alive, still standing, still looking the bear in the eyes. Come on then, he said quietly. Come on. The bear made a decision. It turned and limped away into the forest. The pain wasn't worth it. This small creature was too dangerous, too stubborn. Better to find easier food elsewhere. Day One watched it go. He counted to 30. Then his legs gave out and he collapsed against the rocks. For a long moment, he just sat there, breathing. His whole body was shaking. Adrenaline was fading and the pain was catching up. He reached for his radio with a shaking hand. His fingers were slippery with blood, but he managed to press the button. "Base, this is Day 1, he said. His voice was surprisingly steady. "I had an encounter with an injured bear on the north slope. I'm injured but mobile. Requesting medical support at checkpoint 7. The radio crackled. "Copy that, Day 1. Medical team is en route. Estimated arrival 40 minutes. "Are you in immediate danger?" "Negative. The bear has retreated. I'm securing the area now." "Understood. Stay on the line." Day 1 pulled out his first aid kit. His hands were steadier now. Training took over. "Stop the bleeding first." He wrapped his shoulder tight with gauze. Then his arm. Then his leg. It wasn't pretty, but it would keep him alive until help arrived. He looked around at the blood on the rocks. His and the bear's, what a mess. The tourists definitely couldn't use this trail next month. He would need to file a report. Get the area marked as temporarily dangerous. Make sure wildlife control checked on the bear. Just another day at work, he thought. Then he laughed. It hurt his shoulder, but he couldn't help it. Just another day. The stars looked different from inside a warship. Commander Thelvo stood on the bridge of the Endless Conquest, watching the small blue planet spin slowly in the distance. His long fingers tapped against the command console as his eyes studied the readings. Earth. That was what the inhabitants called it. A simple name for what should be a simple conquest. Thelvos had done this 17 times before. Arrive at a new world. Study the inhabitants. Land the troops. Accept their surrender. It was routine now. The Valtrine Empire stretched across 40 star systems, and soon it would be 41. "Sir, the observation drones are in position," said his science officer, Krenda. The smaller alien's skin shifted to a pale blue, indicating calm focus. "We have full coverage of the major population centers." "Good. Begin the assessment." Thelvos settled into his command chair. It adjusted to support his thin frame in the low gravity he preferred. "How long until we have a complete profile?" 3 days, sir. Maybe less if the inhabitants are as primitive as the initial scans suggest. Thelvos nodded. The preliminary data had been encouraging. The humans had barely left their own planet. A few small stations orbited nearby. Some old satellites floated uselessly in the void. Their weapons were crude chemical explosives and basic kinetic projectiles. They didn't even have proper energy shields. The conquest would be over in a week. But then Krenda made a sound. A sharp intake of breath that made Thelvos look up. "Problem? Sir, you need to see this." Krenda's skin turned orange. Confusion. "The planet classification just came back from the central database." "And?" "Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld." The bridge fell silent. Thelvos stood up slowly. "That's impossible. Nothing that dangerous can support intelligent life." "The readings are confirmed, sir. Atmospheric oxygen levels at 21%. That's toxic to most species. Surface gravity is crushing. The planet has extreme weather patterns, active tectonic systems, and thousands of species that could easily kill most sentient beings." Thelvos walked to the main display. His homeworld was Class 3. Comfortable, safe. Most civilized species evolved on worlds rated Class 5 or below. Anything above Class 8 was considered uninhabitable. Class 12 was supposed to be a rating reserved for failed colonies and quarantine zones. "Show me the inhabitants," he ordered. The screen filled with images of humans. They walked on the surface without protective suits. They lived in structures that weren't even properly sealed. Children played outside in direct sunlight. Thelvos saw one recording of humans swimming in a large body of water, diving beneath the surface without breathing equipment. "They live like this naturally?" he asked. "It appears so, sir. They seem to have full planetary coverage. Every biome is inhabited, even the extreme cold regions near the poles and the scorching desert areas near the equator." Thelvos felt something unfamiliar. Not quite fear, more like uncertainty. He had never encountered anything like this before, but he pushed the feeling aside. The humans were still primitive. Their bodies might be adapted to harsh conditions, but they had no space fleet worth mentioning. They had no energy weapons. They were divided into hundreds of competing groups that could barely cooperate. "Continue the surveillance," he said. "Focus on their military installations. I want to know their troop strengths and response capabilities." "Yes, sir." Over the next 2 days, the data poured in. The humans had large armies, but they were scattered. Their weapons were effective against each other, but would be useless against Valtrine shields. Their response time to threats was slow due to their fractured political systems. Everything pointed to an easy victory. Telvos reviewed footage of human cities, millions of them packed together in towering structures. They seemed comfortable in the crushing gravity, moving quickly despite the weight. The commander watched one recording of humans engaged in what the database called construction work. They lifted heavy objects, worked in dangerous conditions with minimal safety equipment, and operated machinery that would require remote handling by most species. They're stronger than they look, Krenda observed, watching the same footage. Their muscle density is remarkable. Adaptation to the high gravity, Telvos said. It makes sense. Still, sir, I'm seeing some concerning patterns. Humans engage in remarkably dangerous behaviors. They climb mountains for recreation. They jump from aircraft for entertainment. They voluntarily enter environments that would kill them without protection, just to test themselves. Telvos waved a hand dismissively. Every species has its fools and thrill seekers. Focus on military targets, but Krenda's observations stuck in his mind. That night, unable to sleep in his quarters, Telvos reviewed more footage. He watched humans doing something called sports. They ran until their bodies gave out. They hit each other in organized combat. They threw themselves against one another in games that seemed designed to cause injury. The crowds cheered. One recording showed a human female who had been struck by a vehicle moving at high speed. She had been badly injured. The medical report said she spent only 3 days in a hospital before returning to normal activities. 3 days. Telvos had once broken a limb and required 30 days of regeneration therapy. He was still watching footage when the alert came through. One of the drones had captured something unusual. A human in a remote area, alone, far from any settlement. Send it to my screen, Telvos ordered. The image showed dense forest and steep mountains. The terrain looked treacherous, and walking through it, calm as could be, was a human male. He wore simple clothing that offered no protection. He carried a small pack and nothing that looked like a weapon except a basic blade on his belt. Who is this? Telvos asked. The database identifies him as Day One. He's a park ranger, someone who monitors the wilderness areas. Alone? Yes, sir. This appears to be normal for his occupation. Telvos leaned forward. This Day One walked through the dangerous terrain without fear. He stopped occasionally to examine things. He seemed relaxed, almost bored. This was routine for him. Keep the drone on him, Telvos ordered. I want to see how these humans interact with their world when they think no one is watching. Yes, sir. The commander watched as Day One continued his patrol. The human stopped near a stream, knelt down and drank directly from the water without treatment or filtration. Telvos made a note. The humans could consume untreated water from natural sources. Another adaptation. Then the drone's sensors picked up something else. A large heat signature approaching through the trees. Big, moving fast, heading straight for the human. What is that? Telvos asked. Krenda checked the database. His skin turned gray. Sir, that's an apex predator. Local designation, Asiatic black bear. Mass approximately 200 kilograms. Extremely dangerous. The drone indicates it's injured and agitated. The human doesn't see it yet. No, sir. Will he have time to retreat? Unknown. The predator is moving quickly. Telvos stood up. Alert me immediately if anything happens. I want every detail recorded. The bear emerged from the forest just as Day One turned around. For a moment, human and predator faced each other across 10 meters of rocky ground. This was it, Telvos thought. Now he would see the truth about these Deathworlders. Now he would see them run.